All right, welcome everyone to Slamazon Bros Live Week 9. Today we are talking about Amazon fundamentals, the fundamentals that are so important to get down to make sure that you have success in your Amazon business. We're going to hit you with 10 tips or 10 fundamentals that we think are extremely important in order for you to be successful in your business. Before I get into that, if you are watching this on YouTube, we really appreciate if you can just hit the thumbs up like button. And if you just leave a comment with either some kind of positive comment or a question or a helpful hint to other people, we appreciate that. For those of you that are joining us in chat, if you have a question, just type /Q and ask a question there, and we'll try to answer that at the end. But thanks again for joining us, everyone. If you haven't already, join us in the Slamazon Bros Facebook group and check us out at www.slamazonbros.com. We are really working to help Amazon sellers better their business and help new sellers get started on Amazon. But without further ado, I'm going to let Andy give us some tips on how to successfully navigate your Amazon business by getting down the Amazon fundamentals. And if you want to take it away there.
Sure. Thanks, Nate. So we were encouraged by the play of the San Antonio Spurs. If you're a basketball fan at all, you'll know generally that people that follow the NBA say the San Antonio Spurs are probably the most fundamental basketball team in the NBA. They just play really good, basic basketball, kind of basketball like if you've ever seen the movie Hoosiers, which was about a team from Indiana, where you pass the ball a lot, you get everybody involved. There's not a lot of isolation plays where, again, if you have knowledge about basketball, a lot of the NBA is like 1-on-4 stuff. Someone will try to take on 4 players. That's not the Spurs. It's really about teamwork. It's really about fundamentals. And so we thought that, as we start 2016, that a great show would be just about, the fundamentals, business fundamentals, and then the fundamentals of selling on Amazon. So that's what we're going to try to hit today. So again, if you're in the chat room, feel free to post any questions. And Nate, what's the special way, again, if they post a question where it gets moved over to the question box?
Yeah, they just do /Q space and then a space and ask your question, and it'll pop over there for us.
Great. So if you do that, then that question will stay there in the box, and it's not going to get lost in the chat. So feel free, while we're talking, to ask any questions, anything, and we'll try to answer them at the end of the show. All right. So I'm going to go through the first 6, and then I'm going to pass the ball to Nate, and he's going to cover the last 4. So we're going to use a little bit of fundamental teamwork here during this show as well. So here's number one. Number one, I think that's really the most important thing that you need to think about is bootstrapping, especially if you're beginning. You want to think about how you can bootstrap your business. So there are all kinds of Amazon services and tools that are going to try to get you to purchase them right away, right? Or things that, as you begin to read and learn about Amazon that you might think you need right away. But ultimately, I think personally, the best way to start out selling on Amazon is bootstrapping your business and just starting simple. And so, like when it comes to things like listing products, you can list right through Amazon. Before you go to a third-party software, right, listing service, learn how to list through Amazon. If you ever watch Shark Tank, right, the bootstrap mentality is really what separates true entrepreneurs from wannabe entrepreneurs. The folks on Shark Tank, they'll bust on people when they come and they give them the business plan, and if they haven't been out hitting the pavement or trying to make their business work or hustling hard, the sharks will basically eat them up. They'll say, look, why you're coming to us way too early. You need to have calluses on your hands before you come to us. And basically what they're telling them is you need to have that kind of bootstrap mentality. I know when I first started on Amazon, I did everything myself. And so, I shopped at thrift stores. I went through dirty, dingy book boxes, right? Looking for books of value. My lower back, right, was hurt for like 3 or 4 months because I was bending down so much, taping boxes. My hands were cut up. And that's one thing you got to understand too. If you want to be an Amazon seller, and again, especially if you're beginning, It's a dirty business. You're going to get your hands dirty. You're going to have calluses on your hands. And again, your back may hurt. It's not a passive income business, right? A lot of people like that term passive income. To be a successful Amazon seller starting out, you need to understand that it's not a passive income business. Now, like as my business has grown, now I'm able to outsource a lot of that blue collar work that I did. So I use prep and ship companies. And now that I have a good income coming in, I'll use third-party services. But getting back to the fundamentals, when I first started, I bootstrapped. And that's, I think, the kind of mindset you need to have. So that's fundamental one, is learn how to bootstrap. Number two is this: play by the Amazon rules. All right. And if you've been selling for any amount of time, you've probably heard that. You've probably heard that in the different Facebook groups. But the deal is, I'm going to say it again, play by Amazon rules, or you are going to get a foul. And not only that, you could get ejected from the game. All right. Amazon is much stricter than selling on eBay or maybe selling on other platforms. So the deal is, you need to learn what those rules are. You need to research, and you need to ask people. Make sure you know when you're sending product in that you're sending it in properly. I just heard of a seller who got banned because they put the wrong label on products, right? As soon as it hit the warehouse, that product sold, but it was sold as it was a different product. And so 15 or 20 customers got something that they totally didn't want. Amazon shut them down. They suspended them. Now, hopefully they're able to get their account back, but they weren't paying attention to the details, and they messed up, right? And so you'll get, maybe they'll make an appeal and Amazon will let them back in. But if it happens again, then you're really looking for trouble. So make sure you know what Amazon rules are. What people will say a lot of times is Amazon sandbox. So make sure you play by the rules. So, read the Amazon seller forums. They're right there in Seller Central. That's free information. Now, you got to be careful, because sometimes people in those forums, they give bad information on purpose, but you need to filter through that, and you can glean a lot of good things right in those Amazon seller forums that are in Amazon Seller Central. Be relentless in monitoring your seller account feedback. All right. I am definitely hyper. I want to keep my feedback at 100%, especially as I've grown. Now I have over $300,000 buy value worth of inventory in the Amazon warehouse. I want my seller feedback to be 100%. I can live with 99, but I'm always going back, right? Every couple of weeks, I'm going back and trying to get the negative feedback removed that maybe I've tried 2 or 3 previous times. I'll go back and try it in a different way, because I don't sleep well at night unless I know my Amazon seller feedback is 100%. And so, that's, again, just a fundamental thing. You got to care, and you want to keep your Amazon feedback at 100%.
And Andy, if you're doing Amazon FBA, would you say that it typically, if you're trying to keep your feedback well and you're following the rules, it's not too difficult to stay at around 100%. Is that correct?
Yeah. And, in the way that they've automated the process, a lot of times, and again, this is where you need to research and learn. If you word in a certain way, or you choose a certain click, they'll automatically remove it. It doesn't even have to go to a case, right? And so, if you stay on top of it, generally you can really keep it at a high level.
Yeah, I know I've maintained 100%. Like I think you have too. And it's, even though people complain, thankfully Amazon takes responsibility for most of them, if not all of them, if you really try to get them to remove it.
Yep, absolutely. So you guys, we're going through the fundamental things. If you're just joining us, the first one was Bootstrap, the beginning of your business. We're still on the second one, which is play by Amazon rules. If you're in the chat room, feel free to ask a question. If you put Q, then a backspace, it'll go in the question bar. If you can't figure that out, just put it there in the chat, and Nate will answer it while I'm talking, and I'll answer it while Nate's talking. If you haven't followed us yet on Blab, we really appreciate if you would do that. Just hit the follow button, and that really helps us out. So here we're still on number 2, play by Amazon rules. Here's another piece, right? Learn about Jeff Bezos, who's the owner and CEO of Amazon. Learn about his relentless drive for Amazon to be a customer-centric company. All right. I'll say that again. Learn about Bezos, right? And there's books about him, about his relentless drive for Amazon to be a customer-centric company. Why is that important? That's how you and I are able to get a premium price for our products, right? Because people trust Amazon. Bezos wants the customer's trust, right? Because he knows if he has their trust, then they're going to purchase from him. And so that means as sellers, right, we have to eat a lot of returns because Amazon has made it really easy to return things. I just sent a return yesterday of a product I got on Amazon. I didn't have to put a label on it. All I have to do is put the slip inside the box, tape it up, set it on my porch, and then UPS comes and picks it up. As soon as UPS picks it up, the money gets put back into my account. They don't even wait now until it hits the warehouse. They put the money right back in my account when UPS picks it up. Why is that good for you and I? Because we sell on the most trusted e-commerce platform in the world. And that's because Bezos has been relentless in being a customer-centric company. All right. And that's a basic fundamental of business. You can go trace that all the way back to when people started talking about business. The quote used to be when I was growing up, the customer is always right. Right. That's definitely how Amazon is. All right. So that's play by Amazon rules. Here's number 3. First one is Bootstrap. Second one, play by Amazon rules, learn about Amazon. Number 3 is this, right? Especially if you're just starting out. You want to pour as much money as you can into good inventory. Whatever your cash flow is, especially again, if you're beginning, this is where you want to put your money. Don't worry about services. Again, Bootstrap, keep it simple. Where you want to put your money is into purchasing good inventory, right? Now, everyone likes everyone likes fast turn, high margin inventory. But when you're beginning, the key is this. The key is to get the process going and get shipments into FBA because that's how you're going to learn. So look around your house. If you have used books, right? Some of those may be of value. Get those in there. You'd be amazed at the number of goods sold on Amazon that are used. You can make really good money with used product on Amazon, and you can send that used product into FBA. But the deal is you have to get your inventory in. Also know this, for me, and I think you could say this for most Amazon sellers, 20% of my inventory makes me 80% of my profit. But I have to continually be adding new inventory. As Steve Sawyer says, I have to be throwing new inventory into that Amazon river to find out what that 20% is. And that's just basically building shipments, right? And so if you're starting out, you should have some type of goal that you want to ship, at least 3 days a week. At least 3 days a week, that tape gun should be going. Those boxes should be out there, and either you're dropping them off at UPS, or you're having UPS pick them up. All right. But every night you should probably be hearing the squeal of that tape gun. Again, if you're bootstrapping your business and you want to get it in there as soon as possible. All right. Be consistent with feeding Amazon. Be consistent with sending out those shipments. You don't have to send out like huge shipments. But if you can just be consistent, that's how your inventory levels are going to grow. All right. Understand the fast nickel, slow dime philosophy. Use both. Have a mixture, right, of products in your inventory that are okay if they're long tail, and try to, as much as possible, have those fast turning ones as well. Now, this is where I will encourage new sellers. I encourage new sellers to join sourcing lists. All right. And again, this is where I say you want to put your money into inventory. And then I would encourage you to join sourcing lists that have good reputations. All right. Because there's some out there that are garbage. There aren't any good, but there are a number of them that are good. And you know what? Especially if you're a new seller, you're going to learn how to source from these lists. So here's the deal. When you're putting money into sourcing lists, that's putting money into potential product that you can buy. In my mind, that's a good place to spend your money. In some lists that I belong to, all it's taken was one find to pay for the entire year. So I often give this example. I was part of a list. This was when Frozen first came out, right? This list, it was a 1-year fee. You could get it for $400. So I paid that $400 up front. When Frozen first came out, Disney had the Frozen flip-flops, right? You could order them right on Disney. That one fine netted me over $2,500. All right. So I only paid $400 for the year for the list, and they would send out 10 fines a day. Well, those flip-flops, I netted in my bank account $2,500. And so, keep that in mind. If you're going to spend money, you want to spend it on inventory. And if you're just beginning, be okay with finding lists, because not only are you going to find profitable inventory, but you're also going to learn how to source. They're going to take you to websites maybe you weren't aware of, and you'll be able to follow rabbit trails as well from those lists. All right. So that's number 3, is you want to pour money into good inventory. First is Bootstrap. Second is Play by Amazon rules. Third is pour money into inventory. Here's the 4th one, is know your numbers, know your margins, right? Get the FBA calculator extension on Chrome. So that way you can see exactly how much Amazon is going to take out in fees. I can't tell you how many times people buy product, right? And don't understand how much money they're actually going to end up with in their bank account. You have to be aware of what those fees Amazon are going to charge. You need to be aware of what your inbound shipping fees are. Those add up, right? And so even though we get great UPS partner rates, you need to be aware that that is going to cut into your margins. Know what your packaging costs are. Know how much your tape is, right? Know how much, if you're buying boxes, that you're spending on boxes. Understand your labor costs, okay? If you want to get a true picture of your business, you need to track how many hours you put in it, and then assign yourself an hourly wage, right? Because that's a business expense. That's going to give you the true picture of how much your business is actually making. All right. And then here's the last piece on knowing your numbers. All right. And this specifically pertains to margins. Before I buy a product, I always ask myself, right, this question: if the bottom drops out on this product, right? If the price tanks, okay, am I going to break even, or am I going to make just a little bit of money? And generally, if I can answer yes to both of those questions, then that's a product that I'm going to purchase. Of course, that's thinking that maybe the margin right now is I'm making $10 per unit. But I always ask myself, if the bottom dropped out, I guess maybe another question is, how long can I hold on to this inventory? If a bunch of sellers jump in before the price is going to go up. But then I also ask myself, worst case scenario, can I break even or just lose a little bit of money? All right. So that's the 4th thing, know your numbers. So Bootstrap, Play by Amazon rules, pour money into inventory. 4th, know your numbers. 5 is know the key tools. Again, this is the fundamentals we're talking about. We talked about San Antonio Spurs being a fundamental basketball team. Know the key tools as an Amazon seller, right? So just the physical tools, if you're labeling stuff yourself, that's a Dymo printer, or maybe you got the other type of printer. If the packaging materials, I use 3-inch tape, right? I think most Amazon sellers that do any amount of packing prefer that. Know the key sourcing tools, right? And understand them. So Keepa, right? That's a huge one. Being able to see the history of a product. Camel, another great third-party software that gives us some really relevant information. Amazon Seller app, that's free. I mean, everybody on their phone should have the Amazon Seller app, and they keep updating that, right? That just gets better month by month. So make sure you know how to use the Amazon Seller app. Make sure you use that. Merchant Words, if you do private labeling at all, Merchant Words is awesome for understanding how many searches customers on Amazon are looking for particular products, okay? So that's number 5, is know your key tools.
Andy, I just want to cut in there. Not understanding these tools is like the Spurs trying to go play a basketball game in flip-flops, right? They don't got their Jordans or their sneakers on, their correct basketball shoes. They're trying to go play in their flip-flops. If you're not utilizing these tools, you're going to work without the proper equipment that really is going to make you successful. Just a little analogy there.
I learned that thing, Nate, working for my brother, a construction company. And early on, he would buy the cheap tools. Well, about 4 or 5 years in, those tools became expensive because he had to keep buying new ones. So that's when he moved to the Milwaukee, he moved to the Hilti, to the name brand stuff that he didn't have to replace, right? And that's true for a business. Especially as you get to the level, you want to really know your tools, right? And don't be afraid to spend money on them if you have to. Here's number 6. And those of you in the chat room, hey, I see Colder Ice is in the house. How you doing, John? In the chat room, I know we're kind of going fast here, but we just want to try to get the information as quickly as possible. Feel free, though, if you have any questions, to throw some questions in there. So the 6th one that I'm giving is this: become a team player. And this is where I say that has helped benefited my business the most. Other Amazon sellers who have helped me in amazing ways has helped my business grow. Reach out to other Amazon sellers, go to conferences, give value to others, right? Don't just be a taker of information. A lot of times people ask me questions and I freely will try to answer them as much as possible. But I can tell you this, right? The ones that have impacted me are the ones that have done something special back, right? And so, I give an example a lot of times. There's a seller, Mike Dambro. I talked to him and his wife, and a week later, this showed up in my mail, and it was from Mike. He knows that I'm an Incredibles fan, right? So he sent me this. There was another seller who sent me an Incredibles clock. And so that just, to me, that spoke volumes, and it was special. And so as you reach out, especially if you're a new seller, think about different ways that you can give back as well, maybe to those folks that are helping you, or maybe to other folks. It really means a lot. And it's kind of like the Spurs again. You're being a team player. Like Nate and I appreciate so much those of you who have followed us on Blab, or those of you who comment on the YouTube videos. It probably seems something simple, but that means a huge amount to us. You don't understand the emotional boost, right? When someone comments, hey, thank you. And I'm kind of like a golden retriever. All right. That's just my nature. And so I tell people, like, I am a sucker for affirmation. If somebody gives me affirmation, like, I'll give them the world. You know what I mean? Like, there's a love language. It's called actually words of affirmation. That's me all the way. Someone says, hey, thank you, Andy, a great job. I'm like, what do you want? I'm there, so that means a ton. So if you could do that, that would be super helpful. On the YouTube videos, follow us on Blab, make comments. That's all we ask for. And that means a ton. All right. So Nate, I'm passing the ball to you for 7 through 10.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Those are great tips. And yeah, again, everyone, we really appreciate the comments and, any feedback you can give for us. But I'll hit you quickly with 4 more fundamentals that I feel are helpful in getting your Amazon business down. Number 7, if I'm continuing on with Andy's, is understanding that cash flow is extremely important. So we recently had a post relating to this in the Slamazon Bros Facebook group because Andy was talking about an offer that he got from Amazon for a loan. So we just want to, remind you that most small businesses fail because of a lack of cash flow. I don't know the stat right off my head, but it's something like 90% of businesses, small businesses that fail, it's because of a lack of cash flow. This goes back, again, on one of Andy's points of investing in good inventory. That's such a big fundamental or key here, because if you don't invest in good inventory, you can really get into cash flow trouble. But even if you do invest in good inventory, if you spend every single dime that you have and don't have a payout coming for 2 weeks, or maybe your inventory by the time you get it and send it into Amazon and it sells, it's a month or 2 or even longer before it sells. Even if it's really good inventory, if you don't have the cash flow to take care of short-term needs, or even to buy any more inventory in the meantime, this can really inhibit your ability for your business to continue on with a good cash flow. I know cash flow, I mentioned this in the Facebook group. I'm a finance major, or I was a finance major in college, and one of the things we always looked at when we were evaluating companies was their cash flow and how well they handled or managed their cash flow. So to help with this, some of the fundamentals you want to do is you want to have a small reserve, or even a medium to large size reserve if you can. And again, if you can, this might be hard if you're just starting off, but have a couple months worth of cash flow set aside. That's an emergency fund. This is really important, just to get you through some of those tough times and make sure that your business doesn't collapse when all of a sudden your tax bill comes due, or something like that you need to prepare for. You can also set some kind of spending limits. Even if you find a great deal, you might say you're going to limit yourself, especially if you don't have a large amount of capital, just so you don't go overboard and so that you are, limiting your spending somewhat. You can research loan opportunities if you feel like that's going to help your business. We always caution you to be careful. We don't recommend loans until you know what you're doing and really until you have all these fundamentals down. But if you feel confident, you have a really great idea, or you've been in this business a little bit, loan opportunities might be a good deal. And then just making smart buys. And this topic, this point number 7 on cash flow, we are going to have a upcoming Slamazon Bros Live video just dedicated to this because it is such an important topic. But that's number 7 there. Number 8 is tax and legal issues. Make sure you have them down. We talk about it. Why does it seem like we talk about this every single week almost? The reason is because it's so important to any kind of business, not just Amazon businesses, but to any business. You have to have the tax and legal issues down or have a handle on it, even though it's something that most of us don't like to deal with. I know I don't like to deal with those topics. You just need to have them down. I'm not going to go on this too much except to say, again, speak with an accountant, choose the right legal structure for your business, whether that's an LLC, corporation, etc. Talk with an accountant or lawyer if you need to on setting that up, and then look into general liability insurance, see what Amazon's rules are on that, and then see how it can help protect you. So those are just some of the fundamentals, tax and legal issues. Make sure you have them down, just another reminder. Number 9, prepare yourself for the ups and downs of Amazon and have endurance. So I know basketball players, they really need to condition. The Spurs, I'm sure, are in great physical shape. All NBA basketball players are. And why is that? Because they need endurance. They can't just come out and play the first quarter. I know my dad and us growing up, we would always joke that for basketball games, you normally didn't need to watch the game until the fourth quarter. And this is true for a lot of sports because the first 3 quarters, it seems like they're scoring back and forth. And it doesn't matter. And sometimes it does, but it doesn't always matter what the score is heading into the fourth quarter. It's all how they play in the fourth quarter, and it all comes down to the end. But you need endurance. If you come out in the first half and do really well, but you aren't able to endure, you don't have the conditioning or the work put in to get there, you're not going to be able to finish strong. I relate this to the business for the ups and downs because if you're expecting every single day selling on Amazon to be an absolute cakewalk and complete awesomeness, you're in for a couple rough days ahead. And we want you to be able to endure through your business, the ups and the downs of it. Understand that some days are slower than others on Amazon with sales. Some days are also better in sales than others. But you really need to understand this. I often see people asking in the groups if their sales are slow, if everyone's sales are slow. This is completely fine. I've wondered the same thing, and I never have a problem when people ask this, but I get the feeling sometimes that they are discouraged and they're questioning, they're kind of questioning themselves, does this Amazon thing work? My sales are so slow today. They kind of question their own abilities and the ability to sell on Amazon. Some days are just going to be slower, and instead of questioning it, whether this business model works, because we know that it works, you really should be out there looking for more products, new opportunities, and a way that you can send stuff to Amazon, because that's going to make for better sales days ahead so that hopefully in the weeks ahead you aren't questioning yourself. But, so that tip is just to summarize it again, prepare yourself for the ups and downs, have some endurance, try not to get discouraged, and really look at the long haul of things or what you're going to be able to do over a long time frame. And then I know we're coming up to the end of the show time here. Just going to hit you with number 10 real quick. Is number 10 of your fundamentals of your Amazon business is to have a clear vision or goal for your business. This might be difficult if you're just starting out because you don't know what you're getting into. And not only that, dealing with Amazon and e-commerce in general, it changes so quickly we don't really know exactly what's going to be in place 5 or 10 years from now. What doesn't change and what we know will be around are these fundamentals, basically these 10 tips we've given you. These can apply to pretty much any business. We know these are still going to hold true. And what we also know is the fact that the customer is still going to need products. There's still going to be people who are looking to buy things. So you really need to have down these fundamentals. You need to set a vision for your business. We recommend typically to have some kind of goal or vision, such as you want to earn $2,000 a month or a week. Some type of vision or goal what your business is going to turn into, so you have something to work towards, and some kind of motivation that's going to help you from getting off track. If you don't have that, you may find yourself going day to day not without much purpose or without as much motivation or drive. And then all of a sudden you might be finding yourself not sending in shipments like you were before, not purchasing like you were before, because you don't have that big picture in mind. You're not really seeing it, the big picture. You're just going day to day and it doesn't seem like it's working like you were hoping it would. So have a clear vision and goal for your business. And that's the 10th fundamental. And I just want to say real quick, Andy, when I was growing up, when I was 10 or 15 years ago, oh, Andy got kicked off. You can request to get back in, Andy. But I'll end the show with this. When I was growing up, the Pistons, because I'm from Michigan, were my home team. They're a team I was rooting for. And I always hated the Spurs because it seemed like for quite a few years in a row there, the Spurs kept knocking the Pistons out of the playoffs, and it was frustrating. But one thing that I remember my dad saying, and we always said, was that the Spurs did have good fundamentals. So we hope that you found these 10 tips helpful. If you can just give us a thumbs up, again, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. And we really enjoyed everyone in the chat that was able to join us, and hopefully we'll see you in the Slamazon Bros Facebook group. That's going to do it for this week. We'll see you guys next week at 2 p.m. Eastern Time for another show. Thanks, everyone.